The aim of the Journal of Systematic Palaeontology is to publish the highest standards of systematic research. So we're interested in major steps forward in the understanding of the systematics of fossil groups.
By systematics, I mean in particular how we classify extinct species and work out how they're related to each other. And we publish research on fossil groups from across the tree of life, so from everything from dinosaurs through to plants.
Journal of Systematic Palaeontology offers a number of really great things for authors. So we offer format-free submission, so you don't have to format your paper before you submit to us in the first instance. We have no page restrictions, so we take really, really long papers as well as really short papers. We have no figure number restrictions, so you can publish as many figures as you want. And we're also really keen on using data repositories so that your data can be archived in the long term. So we require data archiving on databases like Morphobank.
We may be slightly biased, but we do think that the Journal of Systematic Palaeontology is an excellent journal to publish systematic space research. It's one of the top-ranked paleontology journals internationally. It's been consistently ranked amongst the top quartile for that subject area. And we are one of the few journals within that sort of top-ranked set that publishes these kind of longer descriptive studies, these systematics works, which are like increasingly seen as fundamental to the kinds of science that paleontologists and evolutionary biologists do.
One of the central tenets of paleobiology is to understand how biodiversity has changed over time and the factors that influence this biodiversity change. And one of the best ways that we can study biodiversity change through time is to understand the relatedness between organisms, how they're related to each other, their family trees, if you like. And that's exactly the sort of research that we publish in the Journal of Systematic Palaeontology. So we are interested in very broad scope, very major studies that look at the relatedness between organisms and how we can use that data to really understand, the effect of mass extinctions or environmental change through time. And of course, this has super relevance for today because the only way that we can understand how biodiversity will change in the future is if we can look back at the past when times were different, and we can then see how biodiversity responded to the environmental changes that have happened in the past as well.
The Natural History Museum's mission is to create what we call advocates for the planet. So what we're looking to do is to empower everyone who comes to the museum to go away and tell people about how important nature is and how critical it is that we protect our biodiversity. So one of the ways in which we do that, of course, is through our public galleries and exhibitions. But something else which perhaps is less well appreciated by some is that the museum also carries out world-leading research on the collections that are housed in the museum. So the collections include around 80 million objects, encompassing fossils, rocks, minerals, most modern and extinct species. And it's a sort of amazing resource for understanding the diversity of life through time.
So perhaps a lesser known thing about the Natural History Museum is that we employ around 200 scientists who care for the collection, but also are actively researching it. And of course, many of the objects in our collection are not actually on display. They're housed in labs and in collections, which are being actively used all the time by the museum's researchers, PhD students and postdocs.
So one of the ways in which our scientists are involved in the journals is as editors, so in terms of managing the peer review process. And we have experts in the systematics of lots of different living and fossil groups who are able to contribute their expertise. Another way in which our scientists contribute to the journals is through submitting their own research to our journals. So we do publish papers by Natural History Museum scientists that make a substantial contribution to understanding systematics of different groups. And increasingly, we publish work carried out by PhD students and early career researchers as well. We have started to work much more closely with our sister journal at the Natural History Museum, which is Systematics and Biology biodiversity. When we started to develop a number of exciting new initiatives with them. So in particular, we've started to put together some proposals for joint article collections, which will cover the systematics of different living and fossil groups, and sort of bring together the breadth of expertise at the museum to answer these really interesting questions.
One of the things that I have really found highly beneficial in our partnership with Taylor and Francis so far was that our portfolio manager, Matt, is actually a paleontologist himself. So he really understands the business that we are doing and that we're interested in. And he really understands it from a slightly nerdy point of view, as well as from the point of view of a publisher. And I think that's really helped our relationship with him, because we're able to speak the same language and all be on the same page.
I think we've really valued that kind of one-to-one contact and responsiveness from Matt, which has helped us to kind of develop the journal in the ways we want to, respond to any issues we might be having with software or anything like that, and increasingly kind of make plans for how we want to grow and improve the journal in the future. And I think, with Matt's help, we have lots of exciting ideas for what we're going to do in the coming years.
One of the things that I think has been really useful that Taylor and Francis have done for us is that they've been very responsive to the needs of the journal as the journal has evolved and our needs have changed. So, for example, moving to an online-only publication model has been really, really useful for us, because it's allowed us to continue to publish extremely long papers. We don't have to limit the number of pages that our papers have, which is something that many journals have to do. The flexibility that has been offered to us by Taylor and Francis around how we publish, and also our desire to stay as a hybrid journal and to offer free publication is something that's really important to us and our community. So that flexibility that Taylor and Francis can offer has been really useful to us. We're really looking to increase our outputs in very specific areas. At the moment, we don't get too many submissions from these areas, and we'd really like to see more, and we'd love to publish more papers, particularly on paleobotany, on microfossils, and actually in general on invertebrates. That's not to say that we don't very much value all of the brilliant dinosaur papers that we get, but we would love many more paleontologists from across the entire subject area to consider submitting to the Journal of Systematic Palaeontology.
So although I'm not a dinosaur expert, I do of course have a favourite dinosaur, and my favourite dinosaur, inspired by the Natural History Museum as well, is Diplodocus. So Diplodocus, the very kind of classic, famous, long-necked herbivorous dinosaur, which Susie obviously disapproves of. But the museum had for a very long time a very iconic specimen, Dippy, which was on display. And that specimen was kind of critical to sort of shaping my interest in paleontology as a child. And now things have changed a little bit in the museum, but we do now have Dippy, or a new version of Dippy, on display in the gardens in front of the museum. So if anyone is interested to see my favourite dinosaur, can go out and have a look at it in front of the museum. I'm
contractually obliged to have a favourite dinosaur, obviously. I've spent much of my career working on stegosaurs. These are the armoured dinosaurs with the plates along their backs. They're quite famous. And actually my favourite specimen is a specimen in the Natural History Museum called Dacentrurus armatus. It's actually the first stegosaur discovered from anywhere in the world. It was discovered in 1875, and it's from Swindon.